the slurry process. This company, the VSS, is one of the larger companies in the state or in the United States that does this process, and we were fortunate to be able to have this company do our project. So the roads that have recently been slurried, there was 80 different roads, and they're kind of highlighted in the orange over the city map there. So there was 80 different roads, over 2 million square feet of slurry at a cost of $422,000. Comes out to 20 cents per square foot. If you look at the little green line that's on the map there, we are upgrading Morrell Road from Jackson to Oakdale. The cost to do that road is approximately the same, $420,000, but we're only getting 125 square feet versus 2 million. So when you let the pavement deteriorate beyond repair, beyond where a slurry seal won't work, then you have to grind the asphalt out. You have to do an overlay. As part of the overlay, then you have to do the ADA upgrades, and that comes out to about $3.50 a square foot. So the new roads that you'll see on Morrell will look nicer and newer than the slurry seals, but you can see the cost difference there, and you can see what you're getting for your dollar. You're getting over 2 million square feet for the same price versus 125,000. The city did a pavement management survey where they hired a consultant to go in and walk every street in the city and give it a rating between 0 and 100. And the roads that have between the 70 and the 90 pavement rating, which are kind of your good roads, those are the ones that we can slurry. If they're worse than the 70, then they have to be torn up and replaced. So these are the 80 streets that we completed in 7 days. And 7 days is just the slurry process. There's still additional work being completed as far as street sweeping, restriping, putting in crosswalks, crossbars, and that sort of thing. So the conditions that are measured by Nichols Associates that came in did our pavement management program. You can see here that Riverbank overall rated it a 73, which keeps their roads, which shows that their roads are in very, very good condition compared to other cities that they rated. But only from the 70s to 90s are the ones that we can slurry. Anything that's in the 50s, 25s are going to be completely removed and replaced. So this is kind of a picture of the before and after. There's just a short, just a stretch there where you can see that the slurry was applied kind of halfway through right there, and then after complete slurry. Any questions?
You went out and talked with some of the residents, and what were some of the discussions that you had?
We did go and talk to some of the residents. Some of the concerns, of the significant concerns were the aggregate that was applied became loose and was still on the surface. The street sweeper is supposed to come through and sweep the aggregate up. On turns, where the paving machine has to make turns, you wind up getting a lot more aggregate deposited there, as well as because of cul-de-sacs and because of turns, the cars that are making the turning movements there, the wheels that turn on the slurry when it's fairly new will leave patches. And as you drive through neighborhoods that are either on curves or on where cars have backed out of driveways and you can see where they've turned their wheels to go forward, those areas will pick up a little more of the rock. They'll make the pavement look a little more discolored, and it'll take longer for those areas to wear in.
So after the discussions, were there any issues?
There was still some concern. Certainly there was still some concern about the look, and we attempted to assure the residents that it was going to look better over time and welcome them to show other streets that were slurry sealed 2 years ago that don't have any of those kind of effects.
I have a question. I've talked to some of the residents who have been concerned because not of the rock and the particles that are on top, because it doesn't seem to be hardening in some places. They step on it, they leave a boot print, and it goes down pretty deep. I walked some of the areas just a few days ago and saw this. It wasn't everywhere, but it was here and there, and I saw some deeper tracks. So what do you do if it hasn't hardened enough? You said it takes a couple of months to set in, but if it's not hardening enough, because this particular area I'm speaking about, they did it, I think, around 2 weeks ago, and there were still a lot of softer spots that were really concerning the neighborhood. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so Councilmember Campbell, we did see those spots too, particularly in areas where some of the water meters were being replaced at the same time. We had just completed a slurry seal. Some of the heavy equipment from the water meter project got onto that pavement probably a little too soon, and because of the turning movements that equipment was making, did create some spots that are less desirable, that are still soft. But over time, within the couple-month period, we are fully expecting that those will cure.
You're saying they'll flatten out with disuse and still be okay?
They'll flatten out from tire rolling, yeah. This particular project that we did this year, it was more significant than the 2-year-ago project. This year we added a fiber, like a fiberglass to the pavement to give it some additional strength. And then we also used a rolling process afterwards where they came in with pavement rollers and rolled over the pavement. So that helped it significantly from the 2-year-ago project where the rock was more evident everywhere. These locations are more on where vehicles have been turning and where the roads are cul-de-sacs or that sort of thing.
Okay, will they come through in a few months and kind of do a spot check or anything to see that those spots have?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly have them come back if we're still experiencing those difficulties in a few months, but we would expect within a few months that by the time the vehicle traffic together with the street sweeping process, that those are going to get cleaned up.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
With the temperatures that we have right now, the heat, will that tend to make the surface also soft for maybe a longer period of time?
It will remain softer for a little longer period of time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
To add one additional comment, actually, Councilmember Campbell had mentioned that it looked like Park Ridge Street or Court had been slurry sealed, and that is not technically part of the city. That just happened to be a coincidence. We did confirm that that was not done as part of our project. It was done as part of a county project a short while ago.
So the county's been picking up the bill for it?
Yes, the city.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Item 1.2, report on the status of the repair of the block wall at the southeast corner of Prouty Way and Oakdale Road.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, Michael Riddell, our Public Works Superintendent, will provide an update on this project, which is, I think, a lot of people who, as he's coming up to the podium, a lot of people have noticed that there's been a damage to a wall on Oakdale Road and Prouty, and that was done by a hit-and-run driver. And so Mr. Riddell can provide a brief update on where we're at in the repair of that wall.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So we have been working closely with the homeowner and their property insurance, which is State Farm, as you can see in the staff report. We are working with the insurance company to try to get the wall repaired. What we have been informed by State Farm and his agent is that he can't afford the deductible, which is the $1,400 fee that you see in the staff report. And because a portion of that wall is ours, in other words, where the sign and stuff goes, then we have stated that we will pay the deductible. We'll pay for that out of our O&M budget, so there won't be any appropriations necessary. So as soon as we can get word from the insurance company that that is appropriate and they're willing to do that, then we can get some kind of schedule on when they can get the wall repaired.
Do we have someone who can do the wall?
When we did our research, I don't know what State Farm has done, but when we did our research, we were able to find one individual that could do the work.
Why only one?
Because of the type of brick it's there, then design.
Like poured concrete.
Actually a poured brick. Right? In other words, they either do a stamp press or they do a mold. And my understanding, at first we didn't think we were going to be able to locate the brick that's there, but this particular individual that was going to do the work for us was able to locate a brick manufacturer that could make the brick for us. That was the reason why it was going to be so expensive.
So, as we recall, this was an issue that had come up back in April, and council direction was to, rather than going ahead and funding the wall repair, they would forego speed for getting some source of reimbursement. So we're proceeding with that. We don't have a schedule yet, but did want to let the council follow up. The mayor had asked for a report back on that. So this is where we stand, and in this case, Patience appears to have paid off in terms of coming up with a funding solution that's more cost-effective for the city.
Although it's unsightly and it's taken a long time to get it done, I'm thrilled that we didn't have to fork out $10,000 to get it repaired. So I think it was well worth the wait. I know sometimes government projects don't go as fast as we would like, but in this case, it sure saved us a lot of money. So thanks everybody for being patient and following through with that.
I have a question. Are we going to follow up with the insurance company to see who their person is too, or we just going to move forward with ours?
The insurer that's going to be doing this is the residence insurance company, which is State Farm, not ours.
That's what I meant, their insurance company.
Yes, we're following up with them. Alvaro has been in touch with them, and we're waiting for them to get back to us. So the last correspondence that we had with them, Alvaro had via the phone to let them know that we would be willing to pay the deductible. So we're waiting on a response from State Farm now.
Thank you.
So they've agreed to the 10,000 then, Michael?
I don't know what their plan is to repair the wall, because we haven't had that discussion with them yet. But if it's a $1,400 deductible, I would imagine it's a pretty costly endeavor.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
Item 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter's jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, please state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Do we have public comment tonight?
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Scott McRitchie, City of Riverbank. I was one of those folks that wasn't too happy with the slurry seal. And we were the worst nightmare to the slurry seal people because we were on the curve. We had the tractor with the new water meters moving in and out and scuffing, and it was very hot. So we called the city, and the city said, well, we'll send somebody out between 9:30 and 10. They showed up at about 9:30, right on time. They explained the whole thing to us. You heard a lot of it here, that it would heal itself in time. They showed us different things about how there were some holes, and those will be taken care of. But they handled it in a very professional manner. And one of my neighbors was fairly hot, hotter than the pavement. And he likes to stand nice and close when he talks to you, which I know bothers me. I like a little bit more distance. And they took it just fine. They explained. They showed him different things. We showed the city folks different examples of what we were worried about. And it appeared that our street was worse than others. We have another problem, and that is that there's a mail box thing about 3 houses up. So people come, they get their mail. They come in that turn, they slow down to make the turn, and they gun it, and it just chews it up. So I respect the fact that it is hot, and it's going to be hard for that stuff to do anything as long as we have 100-degree days. But like I say, they're very professional. They answer our questions. One of the neighbors still doesn't feel it was right. He still thinks there's something wrong with the mix, and he can believe that. That's fine. We have a couple more months to wait and see, and I think it'll probably be fine. The second thing is that I just don't understand the water meter thing. We had people come out, they dug the hole and cleared it out. The people inserted the new smart water meters. Then they came back and dug it up again and put in the bigger boxes. And I just don't understand why the boxes weren't concurrent with putting the new meters in. Or put the box in first and then the new meters. Because the folks that were doing the boxes weren't the people who had the knowledge of what to do with the meter. So when you're fiddling around with this stuff and you don't know really what you're doing, you're there to dig holes. So they put it in. Mine, unfortunately, happens to be in the concrete driveway, so it's going to be jackhammered. But it just seemed that they should have done it as a coupling, put the box in and then 5 minutes later put the new stuff in. So it may not affect anything. There may be a few of them that the wire or something got crimped, but I feel that that could have been done a little bit better. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Vice Mayor, the City Council of here of Riverbank. My name is Margarita Avey, and I live in 6230 Estelle Avenue, Riverbank, here in Riverbank. And I am the leader for our church, our St. Francis of Rome in Riverbank. And we have a mayor very concerned, very dangerous concern. We have some problem between Highway 108 and the street from Topeka, Santa Fe, and Stanislaus. It's some incidents there. We have a lot of people who walk, they don't have any transportation, and we are very concerned about it because we need urgent sidewalk, cross size, something for them to protect, especially to the children. And we have an incident there. And some parents, they walk with their children. They go to CCD classes. And it's very, at night, it's very dark, and they can see. And this boy, he's not here today, but he had an accident. And the traffic for us, this can happen to everybody, not only to the church people, but it's very difficult to turn because the traffic goes so fast. It's very fast, and it's dangerous. And we are concerned. That's why we really like to appreciate your time and concerns, like we do, like a citizen from this small city, beautiful city. And I am living here for 20 years, and I am very happy, and I like to help the community. That's why we have one testimony and another person who is going to speak for everybody. It's not only for the members from the church. And I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Additional public comment?
Hi, my name is Victor Orozco, and I'm living here in Riverbank for like 10 years already. And I have the same concern like Margarita. We went to church on San Francisco Rome, and that's really, really dangerous, the curve right there, because people don't respect the speed limit. And I see the other day almost a horrible accident, when I get out from the church. So my concern is to, the protecting people before something big happens. So I kind of like I concerned about it, and we came to see if you guys can help us or give us an option to do something about it, because we don't want to wait till something horrible happen on the corner, and then it's going to happen, because people got killed on the in calendar, and that's one of the things we don't want to see somebody dying, and we can do something before that happens. So it's a really, really concern in our church, and not only the church, for all the community, because sometimes people got to cross the street, and some people don't stop for that people. So we really like to, if you give us like an option or something to do, something about that, because we don't want to, that something really bad happen, and thank you so much.
Mr. McRitchie, someone else speaking?
Gracias por darnos la oportunidad de exponer esta necesidad que es muy urgente y necesaria Mi nombre es Teresa Rodríguez, pertenezco al Grupo de Justicia Social en la Iglesia de San Francisco de Roma. Nuestro propósito como grupo es ver las necesidades y preocupaciones de la comunidad. Una preocupación urgente que vimos fue que necesitamos de su ayuda y apoyo para poner un puente o una luz en la carretera de la iglesia de San Francisco de Roma, donde las personas puedan cruzar con seguridad. En lo personal, he tenido experiencias, regularmente ando caminando y escucho los comentarios de personas que duran mucho tiempo para cruzar, y lo más preocupante es que he visto entre 4 a 6 personas mayores se ponen cruzando para llegar a la iglesia, porque hay mucho tráfico y desafortunadamente los carros no dan el paso porque van agarrando velocidad por la curva que está allí. Por eso es que se nos hace urgente e importante. Una señora mayor, yo la acompaño 1 o 2 veces por semana porque tiene miedo cruzar. Un más comentario de otra señora que me contó con gran dolor, y ya al cruzar más, ella cruza más de 4 veces por semana para llevar a sus hijos a la doctrina o a practicar en el coro de la iglesia, y me contó que uno de esos días le andaban matando a su hijo. Estaban durando mucho para pasar y se les estaba haciendo tarde y se pusieron en la línea amarilla, pero venía manejando una persona y estaba usando su celular y no los vio y poco faltó para que se lo llevara a su hijo, que lo chocara pues. Y eso tocó mi corazón. Espero que también toque su corazón y nos ayuden a lograr este propósito antes de que sea demasiado tarde. Gracias.
¿Cómo se llama?
Teresa Rodríguez.
Sí, y your residence?
Oh, aquí en Riverbank, 6310 Jackson, en Riverbank, California.
Gracias.
Mayor, it appeared from that there were a number of people who could have translated, and there was a decision not to. Would somebody like to summarize what was said, just so that those that don't speak Spanish might have a sense of that? Because we certainly appreciate her being here this evening. So Alvaro Zamora, who is a member of the city staff, and do you know the individual who provided testimony, Al?
I do know everybody, yeah. And basically, she said the same thing, her concerns about the crossing calendar. It's very dangerous. They're very concerned. She's personally witnessed a couple near misses, and I guess a friend of hers told her, too, that her son almost got ran over one of those days crossing the street because, you know, on the daily basis, we have catechism there during the regular school year, and there's always people crossing the street, and they're very concerned that they want your support and help to hopefully accomplish something, maybe build a bridge or crosswalk or a street light to make it safer for people to cross, not just the church folks, but also the whole community.
Thank you.
Regarding the calendar Topeka corner, the Bell Dentistry there, they park the cars on calendar. And if you get a big SUV, you can't see. You can't stop at the legal place and see the road. And what happens is when you pull out enough where you can see the traffic, if someone is turning from calendar to head up to Topeka, they can't get around your car. It's dangerous because they have to go. They'd cut the front off of your car if they followed the way they should go, so they have to go a little bit further in this way. I would think if we had a little bit of red paint to just eliminate one car from that corner, it would make it a lot safer. Because I pull my car up there and then somebody's tried to turn and I'm sitting halfway out in the intersection because I can't see the car coming the other way. So to me, it's an easy fix. A little bit of red paint, don't park there, be fine. They can park still 3 cars, but not a great big SUV in that last slot because you just can't see around it.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Mayor, members of the City Council, we had planned to do some staff comments for an update on the water meter project. If you'd like, can have Michael Riddell provide an update on that project in response to the public comments made.
Let's do that at the end. I'd rather address the 108.
In regards to Highway 108, some members of the church have contacted Councilmember Barbara Martinez, who brought this to my attention. We have contacted Caltrans to let them know of the concerns. That area of Callender is under Caltrans control. It is a particularly difficult stretch because you enter it and exit it through curves, and people do pick up speed. I know the police chief was listening carefully to the comments in terms of enforcement and being able to look at that. The area in terms of Topeka and Callender, in terms of if there's an area of that area that we can control and maybe look at the parking of adding a red curb there, if that would help one element of the issue. One of the dilemmas that we've talked about before at the dais is that crosswalks can create a false sense of security. So even if it was a city street, we would be very concerned about creating a false sense of security for people, so they think they're safer than they really are. And as we've also talked about, even if they have the right of way, you still, if people don't see you, you can still get hit, creating a terrible situation for the victim as well as the person who hits the person. So it's not an easy challenge, but we have referred it to Caltrans, the Office of Traffic Safety. We'll continue to look at whether a lighted crosswalk or possibly a signal, but again, those are all things that from a city perspective, and I think Caltrans' perspective, would be creating that false sense of security. That being said, Caltrans deals with this in a lot of different areas. Sometimes they have creative solutions and things that we haven't thought about, and we certainly want to look at that to preserve this pedestrian safety. Do just need to urge care and caution in crossing any street, particularly a busy one, that it is, while pedestrians have the right of way, it's very difficult to be seen. And so we would just urge the utmost care for anybody crossing any street, particularly one as busy as Callender. That is the best precaution of all.
We brought the head of District 10 down here and addressed that particular area before.
We have addressed that issue before, and we're about due for our annual visit from Caltrans, and so that could certainly be something that we can talk about with him as well.
Right, and I'd like to invite the public to our next discussion with the head of Caltrans. But we have been ongoing. That is State Route 108, and the city of Riverbank can't even paint the red stripes. Caltrans would have to make the decision on what to do. With your input, it may move them a little faster than they have moved in the past. It took 5 years to get that stupid left turn sign changed. So let's see what we can do together. Okay. Joe, let's invite him at some time and we'll let everyone know.
Certainly.
Moving on to the consent calendar, consisting of item 3A, waive reading. Item 3B, approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2016 City Council at Local Redevelopment Authority meeting. Does anyone wish to pull anything? Anyone from the public wish to comment on these? Bring it back to the council for a recommendation and action.
I make a motion we approve the consent calendar.
I second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on the consent calendar.
Councilmember Leanne Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Cal Campbell,
Yes?
Councilmember Darlene Barber Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Janine Tucker,
Yes.
and Mayor Richard O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.1, resolution, Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, amending and/or approving the engineer's report for the Riverbank Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District, and to levy and collection of annual assessments related thereto for fiscal year 2016-17. And resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, ordering the levy and collection of annual assessments for the Riverbank Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District for the fiscal year 2016-17.
Mayor and members of the City Council, this is the first of a number of public hearings regarding the lighting and landscaping districts. Maricela Garcia is prepared to provide a brief staff report in regards to this annual review of the lighting and landscaping districts, if the City Council would like to have that overview of each of them. So we're prepared to give that if the council would like, or we can take them one by one.
A very brief overview, please, and we'll continue on.
So good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The presentation we have for you tonight on this item does encompass items 5.1 through 5.7. So you'll see the figures for all of the city's 5 landscape and lighting districts, as well as the 2 storm drain districts. The good news is that we are not recommending any adjustments to the current rates. So the rates that we're proposing are exactly the same rates that we proposed for 2015-16. So we are asking for your consideration in approving the 2016-17 engineers report and ordering the levy and collection of these annual assessments. As I mentioned, we do have 5 landscape and lighting districts that were adopted pursuant to the L&L District Act of 1972. The annual assessments cover the cost of the landscape maintenance, street lighting, and capital improvements. And we do review these budgets annually to ensure that we are collecting sufficient revenues in order to maintain these areas. And the same goes for our 2 storm drain districts. And so the highlight, as I mentioned, there's no increases that we're proposing on any of our L&L districts. This is our Ridgewood Place, which would remain at an $80 annual assessment. Our consolidated district, which actually encompasses several areas throughout the city of Riverbank, but we're also recommending no change within these districts. River Cove will remain at $196.90 for the year. Our Crossroads district is broken up into different zones depending on the type of landscaping that exists within each zone, and there is no recommended change from the current fiscal year. Sierra Vista Estates will remain at $40.81. And our storm drain district located in the JKB Homes area will remain at $65.22. As well as our Heartland Storm Drain District located in the Crossroads area, that will remain at $37.62. And so our recommendation is the acceptance of the engineer's report and ordering the levy and collection of the assessments.
Thank you very much. For item 5.1, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on item 5.1? I close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for discussion and/or recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the engineer's report and the levy and collection of the annual assessments for your fiscal year 2016-17.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve the engineer's report and resolution for levy and collection of annual assessments.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
passes 5-0.
At this time, we'll draw numbers from the magical hat.
And while Luann Bain, who is filling in tonight for Annabelle Aguilar, passes out the numbers for public watching on television, the council is drawing numbers to determine which members of the city council who have a conflict will remain at the dais to vote on this particular issue.
That's what I had a problem with.
So the numbers of 1, 2, and 3 will stay at the dais. Or excuse me, 1 and 2 will stay at the dais. Items, the numbers 3 and 4 will be asked to step aside.
Okay, you got it, lady. I would expect to be back in 2 minutes.
Let's go for a minute and a half.
Vice Mayor will assume chairing the meeting.
So,
item.
do we open it up for public?
Yes.
This item is open for public hearing. Do we have any public that wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
I move that we accept item 5.2 as stated.
And I second.
Call for the vote?
And just to make it clear, was the resolution, the title of each resolution read at this point? Okay.
Yes, it was. I believe it
Councilmember
was.
Campbell?
No, I don't think
No.
he did, actually.
He only read 5.1.
I'm thinking about
then
what
you
we
We
did
need to read
before.
5.2.
Then you should read
You
it.
want me to
Clerk,
read?
please read the names
The title for,
of both resolutions, please.
okay.
Great, thank you.
Item 5.2, Resolutions Crossroads Landscaping and Lighting District. Item 1, Resolution of the City Council in the City of Riverbank, California, amending and or approving the engineer's report for the Riverbank Crossroads Landscape and Lighting District and the levy and collection of annual assessments related thereto for fiscal year 2016-17. And, Item 2, Resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, ordering the levy and collection of the annual assessments for the Riverbank Crossroads Landscaping and Lighting District for fiscal year 2016-17. Now maybe we call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Tucker?
Yes.
Passes 3-0.
Call for the mayor.
Balancing nails on top of each other. I've been reading the titles.
Mayor, I think in this particular case, it was appropriate that you didn't read the title because we needed to have members step off the dais. So I think all went well. All went smoothly.
We're all good.
Item 5.3, Resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, County of Stanislaus, California, ordering the levy and collection of assessments within Riverbank Storm Drain Maintenance District number 2006-01, Heartland, for fiscal year 2016-2017. This is a public hearing. I open the public hearing comments for item 5.3. Seeing no public comment, I close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a recommendation and/or action.
I make a recommendation that we accept item 5.3, ordering the levy and collection of assessments.
I second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 5.3.
Councilmember Jones Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.4, resolutions. Ridgewood Place Landscape and Lighting District. 1, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, amending and/or approving the engineer's report for Ridgewood Place Landscaping and Lighting District and levy and collection of annual assessments related thereto for fiscal year 2016-2017. And resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, ordering the levy and collection of annual assessments for the Ridgewood Place Landscaping and Lighting District for fiscal year 2016-17. This is a public hearing. I open this for public comment. Is there any public comment on item 5.4? Seeing there's no public comment, I close the public comment, bring it back to the council for recommendation and/or action.
I'll move that we approve item 5.4.
I'll second it.
We have a lot of people who are wanting to approve and the second item 5.4.
I ask which one was first on the second?
Tucker was first, second was,
Darlene Barbara Martinez.
Okay,
Okay,
me.
you got it.
okay.
Councilmember Jones Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.5, resolutions, River Cove Landscape and Lighting District. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, amending and/or approving the engineer's report for the River Cove Landscaping and Lighting District and the levy of and collection of annual assessments related thereto for fiscal year 2016-2017. And resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, ordering the levy and collection of annual assessments for the River Cove Landscape and Lighting District for fiscal year 2016-2017. This is a public hearing. Do I have any public comment on item 5.5? Seeing no public comment, I close public hearing, and bring it back to the council for recommendation and/or action.
Make a motion, we approve item 5.5.
I second that motion.
We have a motion to approve item 5.5 and a second.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.6, Resolution Sierra Vista Estates Landscape and Lighting District. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, amending and/or approving engineer's report for the Sierra Vista Estates Landscaping and Lighting District and levy and collection of annual assessments related thereto for fiscal year 2016-17. And 2, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, ordering the levy and collection of annual assessments for the Sierra Vista Estates Landscaping and Lighting District for fiscal year 2016-2017. This is a public hearing. I open it for public comments. Do I have any public comment on item 5.6? Seeing no public comment, I close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a recommendation and/or action.
I make a motion that we approve item 5.6.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 5.6.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.7, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, County of Stanislaus, State of California, ordering the levy and collection of assessments within the Sterling Ridge Benefit Assessment District for fiscal year 2016-2017. This is a public hearing. I open it up for public comment. Do I have any public comment on item 5.7? Seeing no public comment, I close the public hearing and bring it back for a recommendation and/or action by the City Council.
I'll make a motion that we accept item 5.7.
A second.
We have a recommendation, we have a motion to approve item 5.7 in a second.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.8 will be continued. It was the resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, approving and adopting a 5-year capital improvement plan, CIP, for fiscal years 2016 through 2021. At this time, members from the public may comment on this or wait for the continuance. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to LRA, item 5.9, resolution of the Local Redevelopment Authority Board of City of Riverbank, California, approving the budget for fiscal year 2016 to 17.
Mayor, members of the City Council, Melissa Holdaway, Senior Management Analyst for the Redevelopment Authority, will be presenting the budget this evening, along with Debbie Olson, the Executive Director, who will also be available to address any questions.
Good evening, Chair and Authority members. I'm bringing back the budget for adoption that you saw 2 weeks ago for the presentation of our 2016-17 budget. The budget assumptions have stayed the same. The only thing that has changed since the agenda had been posted was the Army lease was executed on Friday. Anticipated potential impacts, still the same. The loss of OEA funding after December 2016. ESCA number 2, we need the grant match. It's critical for replacing our roofs and siding. The executive MOA, or execute the MOA, and that's going to lose our caretaking revenue, pay permits, and fees and assessments on the property will be taking place at that time. The LRA budget funds, Fund 197 is leasehold. This fund accounts for site revenue and expenditures. It also covers grant match. Fund 198 is our OEA grants. This fund covers personnel costs, administrative costs, and professional services. Traditionally has been at 90% with our match at 10%. Fund 199, our ESCA. This fund covers personnel and administrative costs associated with the project, contracts associated with the remediation project, and disposal. All the revenue generated on site must be reinvested into the site. Funds are non-discretionary. Our budget overview has not changed since I brought this back 2 weeks ago. Our estimated beginning reserve is still going to be about $5 million. The estimated revenues at $21 million, estimated expenditures at $22 million, and the ending reserve at $3.9 million. The beginning and ending reserve does include the advance payment of funds for ESCA number 2 in this budget year, along with a contingency for overruns. Site revenue projections, our rents, caretaker revenue, utility revenue, and miscellaneous revenue is changing about 3%. There's a difference of $75,000, so we'll have about $75,000 more this fiscal year. Site expenditure overview, costs and expenditures associated with the facility operations, maintenance, management, security, also includes OEA grant match, has increased by 39%. That's mainly due to the expenditures with facility operations and the security personnel costs have increased. Grant revenue overview. Our Office of Economic Adjustment grant has gone down because we are only getting it for 6 months in this next fiscal year. It will end in December of 2016. That's a difference of 48%. Grant expenditure overview is the same. What we receive in grants is what we expend. ESCA number 2 revenue overview. We received $8 million. Revenue in this next fiscal year is another $18 million. Difference of $10 million, that's 120% change, and that's due to the Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement ramping up in this fiscal year. Expenditure overview, we're estimating about $4 million being spent by June 30. I think that may change with the fiscal year end budget when I bring that forth. The revenue, $18 million, we're expecting, the expenditures of $18 million in this next fiscal year due to the ramp up. So it's a difference of $14 million. And you've asked me to bring forth a little bit more information about what this ESCA is covering. And the work that is currently being done for the next 12 months includes baseline sampling of air, dust, and surfaces. Dust is being removed from interior structural surfaces inside the buildings, and the paint is going to be removed from the concrete floor to a height of 8 feet. Concrete floors will be remediated, and the pits and trenches will be covered. This project is being paid at prevailing wage, with the bulk of the project being completed this fiscal year, hence the substantial costs associated in this fiscal year budget. So that's pretty much what that $39 million is going to be covering. And the recommendation tonight is to approve and adopt the resolution approving the fiscal year 2016-17 LRA budget.
Right, thank you.
Done 2.2.
Is there any comments or questions from the City Council?
I have a question. The LRA budget overview, I'm not quite sure the terminology you use, contingency for overruns. I'm not quite sure that terminology.
Okay, so what we've got, basically when we did the $39 million, we had budgeted what we thought it would cost, and if there's any overruns, we have that money in contingency to cover those overruns.
This is public meeting. Any comments from the public? Seeing no public comment, bring it back to the LRA board for recommendation and or action.
I move we accept item 5.9 as so stated.
Second.
We have a recommendation for approval of item 5.9 and a second.
Authority Board Member Jones-Cruz.
Yes.
Authority Board Member Campbell.
Yes.
Authority Board Member Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Vice Chair Tucker.
Yes.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 5.10, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, adopting fiscal year 2016-2017 annual operating budget.
Mayor, members of the City Council, as you may recall, there was a lengthy budget workshop in May to review the proposed budget. At that time, Maricela Garcia and members of the management team provided an overview of each budget. This evening, Maricela Garcia, our Director of Finance, will be providing an overview of the budget and highlighting key issues in the budget for your comment this evening. And then ultimately, we are recommending adoption of the budget to start the fiscal year on July 1st, 2016.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I do wish I only had 3 funds to present to you, but unfortunately the city's budget is a little bit more expansive than that. but I'll try to go as quickly as possible. As the city manager mentioned, we did have a budget workshop in May, at which time the department heads did present their budgets to you, and were able to answer any questions that you might have had at that time. Since then, we did not make any significant changes to the budget. There were some very minor changes that resulted in about an additional $7,500 in expenses, operating expenses that came about for our Parks and Recreation Department, but it's nothing major that significantly impacted where our reserve levels would be. And so just to give you a general overview, we'll go over the general fund, our special revenue funds, our system development fee funds, our housing funds, and our sewer and water enterprise funds. So in terms of the general fund, as of July 1st of 2016, we're estimating a reserve of 10.5%. So that does meet your minimum requirement of a 10% reserve. The projected revenues for the upcoming fiscal year are about $8.7 million, with expenditures at 8.8. So that leaves our reserve as of June 30th, 2017 at 8.3%. That does fall short of your required 10% level by about $150,000. And that does reflect a structural deficit where our revenues are not enough to meet our expenditures at about $140,000. But we did want to highlight that of that $140,000, $104,000 are one-time expenditures and include the expense related to the upgrade of the camera system here in our council chambers, which is directly funded through the public education and governmental fees that we collect from AT&T and Charter, and also includes the funds that were set aside for the professional services related to classification and compensation study that was agreed to as part of the labor negotiations in 2014. For the upcoming fiscal year, we'll be looking at a 2.5% increase in our revenues, which equates to about $212,000. Just to give you some of our highlights of the major revenue sources that we have, we're looking at a 2% increase in our sales tax based on information that we've received from our sales tax auditor, and includes the addition of the businesses that we've had out in Crossroads. Our property tax current secured, we're currently looking at a 5% increase there. Property values continue to increase throughout the city. And we also have the continuation of the construction at KB Homes, which will most likely end very soon, as they have pulled their last building permit. But we will see that influx of revenue coming in the upcoming fiscal year, where we're seeing base values go from zero for basically zero for property to now having a building and structure on the property. Property tax in lieu of VLF, which is also tied to our assessed values, will increase by 6%. This revenue comes directly from the state of California and is not something that's funded by the county. And the transfer in of management fees is the fee that we charge to other funds for the work that we do for our water and sewer enterprise funds particularly. So any work related to my staff when they do utility billing, since it's water and sewer related, we charge those funds for that work that's done. And so that increase is 7%. For the upcoming fiscal year, we're looking at a 1.6% increase in expenditures, and that equates to about $135,000. And some of the major, looks like I didn't finish that slide. Some of the major expenditure types that we have are salary and personnel costs at about $3.1 million. Our law enforcement contract at $3.6 million. We have operating expenses of $1.9 million. As you'll know, we no longer have the ED bank loan payment, nor do we have any one-time grants that we'll be receiving in the upcoming fiscal year that would cause any expenditures. We do have the one-time capital expenditures of $100,000, and so the total budgeted expenditures for the general fund are $8.86 million. We do have 2 personnel requests that have been included in the figures that I've been discussing with regards to expenditures of the general fund. The first is the transition of a part-time administrative intern position to a full-time administrative clerk. And this position would be in our Parks and Recreation Department. Currently in the budget, we do have included the additional cost of $33,000 in order to fund this position. Now, mind you, this is only the first year cost associated with that increase. In the future years, we will have increases based on benefit increases as well as any future salary increases that are negotiated as part of our labor negotiations. We also have the addition of a part-time administrative intern in our Administrative Services Department, and that cost would be $17,000 for that position.
I'd like to point out, since those are transitioning the part-time administrative to two basically part-time positions into one full-time, that would be an ongoing cost. The part-time administrative intern position in Administrative Services would be basically a one-time cost that would end at the end of this year. It has been proposed because of the move to district elections and the work that has been assumed by the city clerk and the administration office in relationship to the water appeals process and the water appeals hearing. So some of that process might be able to be offset, but essentially it'll be budgeted in administrative services under the general fund.
What the city manager and I wanted to be able to highlight with you tonight is what would our general fund reserve look like if we were not to adopt the 2 proposed positions that are being presented tonight. So without the proposed staffing that's being presented, and that would be both the full-time position in Parks and Recreation and the part-time position in Administrative Services, we would actually be looking at a structural surplus. Minor at only $13,800, but it would be a structural surplus. So we would see our revenues coming in and being sufficient to meet our ongoing operating expenditures.
Let's stop there. You gave us a proposal to increase personnel time with a salary, but then you're saying we can take it away and have a surplus, which is our goal, to have the surplus.
That's correct. The people are most certainly needed. And I'm pretty sure that that's what the city council had in mind when we discussed this during the budget workshop and did recommend that we look at including those costs.
Are there any other people that we need?
Yes, we probably could add 5 people to the staff tomorrow, starting with 2 deputies in with the sheriff's contract, and that would just hit the surface, and 3 administrative positions. We are at this point very low staffed. We are trying to meet the demands of the state as well as meeting the strategic goals. As you can tell, we have, just by virtue of the fact that we have a small staff, we do not have a lot of depth. And that's just, we don't have enough people. We do as much cross-training as we can, but there still needs, that usually though, even if you have an absence, we don't have enough people to take, it's not like we can take them away from what they are doing to do the other person's job when there's an absence. So I would let the council know that yes, we are very short-staffed. We have a lot of work to be done. The dilemma is we don't have the funds to pay for it. The discussion about transitioning the part-time positions in recreation to a full-time come out of, one, a great need and a desire for customer service and the continuing advancement of those programs. The other thing is that because of the need for that person, we often and every year come up against the legal limit on the hours, which says that we definitely need a full-time person, because we are constantly monitoring that. And that is an issue that's of concern. We also are paying PERS to that part-time person. So, yes, we desperately need the people, and this is a position that has been discussed as a possibility of going back to a full-time position every year I've been here. but it is my responsibility as your city manager and Maricela as your director of finance to highlight that this is how close we are, and that I do believe that we're going to see building permit fees probably cover the balance in this next year. We probably will have enough to bring us at the end of the year to cover that one time, but we are incredibly tight. Our budget is incredibly tight, and we do not have, quite frankly, we are constantly struggling to meet your expectations in terms of speed, to meet the state requirements, and we are pushing hard in a very tight budget and a very small staff. And so this slide highlights that, of how close we are. As much as we'd like to add the staff, we just don't have the resources to do it.
So are we set for HR? Are we set for some of the other items that you had talked about before?
We have monies in the budget for an HR position, and that we will be looking to fill that position ongoing. We will have some salary savings associated with that too, potentially for the first couple of months as we go through a transition. So there, again, everything will probably balance out at the end of the year, and put us into where we do not have an ongoing structural deficit, but it's tight. It's just tight. And that will be particularly important as we go into the financial forecast in September and as we go into a collective bargaining for 2017.
Thank you.
So just to highlight some of the additional outstanding items that we do have legal settlements that are associated with open matters, for example, the skate park litigation, future impacts of the state's budget on our general fund revenue sources. Although the majority are protected, there are decisions that they can make that will affect our revenues. Unfunded state mandates, especially stormwater. Funding of the zoning code update, which is something that Donna is currently working on. The municipal code update, which sorely needs to be completed. Funding for our 7th Street storm line. We do have that project that is still outstanding and that will eventually need to be repaired. We do have a non-motorized transportation plan that needs to be completed for the city, and as well as a Parks and Recreation master plan. We have future minimum wage increases that are going to affect our full-time wages as those minimum wage increases for our part-time employees become closer and closer, and that gap between our part-time and our full-time gets smaller. We have our labor contract negotiations, which begin in January of 2017, and we have future increases in the sheriff's contract that we'll need to address. We did have one-time savings this year in terms of the sheriff's contract due to the savings of the Stanislaus Regional 911 Communication Center, which we will not have in the next fiscal year. And so that takes me to our special revenue funds. These special revenue funds are legally restricted to be spent on specific areas or projects. And I've listed several examples. The one that we seem to discuss the most is our gas tax fund, which can only be spent on street maintenance and street capital projects, which can include any sidewalk, curb, and gutter work. We do have some major projects recommended within all of our special revenue funds. We do have ADA accessibility funds that we have allotted in our gas tax funds in the amount of $50,000. We have asked staff that they not begin any planning for these funds until after the mid-year, only because this revenue source is very vulnerable to the state's decisions on how much excise tax can be collected on our fuel purchases. And so we may be looking at having a mid-year adjustment in order to remove this funding should the revenue not come in as we're anticipating. Within our general liability fund, we've allotted funds that will go towards our Jacob Meyer Safe Tree Cut, towards risk management in general, and we'll be looking at some security options for our City Hall South front counter. And in terms of our special revenue funds, we are looking at a structural deficit of $200,000, but The important thing to remember is that several of these funds are designed to operate at a structural deficit because the revenues are one-time in nature. They may be received in one fiscal year, the funds spent in a subsequent fiscal year with no additional revenues coming in. And so that's typical of these special revenue funds where they're not ongoing, there's not an ongoing revenue source that comes in. Our system development fee funds for the upcoming fiscal year, these are legally restricted to be spent on projects that were identified in our Nexus fee study and which the City Council adopted in 2015. The revenues are paid solely by new development, both residential and commercial. And we have collected revenues in terms of storm drain, police and general government. We have collected a fee from Crossroads for the undergrounding of some utilities in that area. And we continue to collect revenues towards that as the Crossroads builds out. Some of the major projects that we've recommended, and these were included in the adopted CIP in 2015, and will be amended based on what is adopted this current year in 2016. So for streets and public works, we've got funding towards the Clarabelle and Roselle traffic signal. Although the construction won't be until a future fiscal year, these funds are dedicated towards the engineering, and so we did want to make sure to allot those funds during this fiscal year in the hopes that the engineering will be completed during the year. And we also have funds that will go towards the railroad crossing at First Street and Patterson, and which may be a part of the project that's being done for the traffic signal installation at Patterson and Roselle. In terms of storm drainage, we have funds that are going to be allotted towards the First Street Basin reconstruction. This would be for the engineering. The actual funding needed for this project is about $700,000, but only 10% of that was attributable to new development. And so we have only allocated the 10% that goes towards the First Street Basin reconstruction. And so we may be looking at beginning some engineering until we find a subsequent funding source for that. And in police and general government, we do have funds allocated towards replacement vehicles for both parks and for administration. In terms of our system development activity, we are looking at ending with a reserve of a little bit over $6 million, and does highlight a structural deficit of $437,000. Once again, these are designed to operate at a structural deficit where the revenues are paid by the developers, and they subsequently go to fund the projects in our Nexus fee study. There are one-time revenues. Unless we have continuing development from year to year, those revenues tend to run out once the projects are completed. In terms of our housing funds, we have a variety of housing funds which serve to provide funding for our first-time home buyers and our housing rehabilitation loan program. We do have a current outstanding portfolio of about $11 million, and as the property values in Riverbank continue to increase, we find that a lot of the homeowners that have obtained loans from the city will use their equity in order to pay off this particular loan for the city, or if they're looking to upgrade their starter home to a different home, then they'll sell their property, pay off the city loan, and that's how the city continues to fund their programs. So we've been seeing that a lot this current fiscal year. We have had quite a few payoffs that we've received from people who hold loans, so we anticipate that that'll continue in the upcoming fiscal year. And in terms of the beginning reserves, we'll start off with about $500,000 in beginning reserves, and we'll end with reserves of $197,000 as we continue to fund loans. Some of the requirements that we have in order to obtain new grants for these two programs is that we have to use all of the funding that we have received from those payoffs, and so that's why you'll see such large structural deficits when it comes to our housing funds, because we're required to use all of those monies first before we can request any grant funds. Our sewer enterprise funds, and that includes both our operating funds, our sewer debt service funds, our sewer capital improvement funds, and our sewer system development fee funds. Some of the major projects we've included in the budget are we've allocated funds for emergencies, and then we've also allocated funds for the deep ripping of the disposal ponds at the wastewater treatment plant. In terms of sewer debt service payments for the upcoming fiscal year, that's going to be about $700,000. We still have the sewer SRF loan that was obtained in 2001 and 2002 for the upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant that we continue to pay off. We also have the loan that we obtained for the Schneider Electric project that we continue to pay off, and which the savings that we've experienced in terms of electricity have been significant to the point where this fiscal year or this proposed budget actually reduces the budget an additional $300,000 in terms of energy savings. And we also have an internal loan that we continue to pay off, and that should be paid off in about 5 years. So for our sewer enterprise activity, we are looking at ending our reserve at about $2.6 million. In terms of the operating fund for our sewer fund, we'll be looking at ending that the fiscal year with a reserve of $823,000, which is about 37%. And as we begin to continue to raise our rates, which the next rate increase will be July 1st, we'll continue to see that deficit close. Our water enterprise funds contains a similar type of funds as the sewer enterprise. We have our water operating fund, our capital improvement fund, we have our water connection fees, and our system development fees that are related to water. And these can only be spent on water-related items. In terms of major projects, we've allocated some monies for any type of emergency that might come through. And of course, the biggest project that we still have is that water meter reading system. Although we did obtain a loan for that, that's currently being funded through that loan. And at this point in time, the project is about 50% complete, so we'll see the completion of that in the upcoming fiscal year, and certainly within the next 6 months. And so for all of our water enterprise activity, we'll be looking at an ending reserve of $3.3 million. And we do have a personnel request within our water operating fund, and that's the transition of a part-time water conservation coordinator to a full-time position in the water operating department. And that additional cost is of $54,000. Now, there's been some discussions among staff and with the city manager relating to the need for transitioning that to a full-time position, given the fact that the conservation order has somewhat been lifted on the city, and so we may not have that need. And there's also been additional work on the self-certification that's been done that may not require a full-time position. Currently, it is included in the budget. The recommendation at this time is to include that and revisit that at mid-year, so we would not fill that as a full-time position during the first 6 months of the year. I'm sure there'd be any change in the conservation order or any change in the figures that we've self-certified, then we would have the funding available to be able to quickly move on making this a full-time position. But City Council does have the option of not providing any funding for a full-time position and keeping that at a part-time position at this time.
I see the title is Water Conservation Coordinator to Water Operating to a full-time position. Is that going to be the same thing always? Just water conservation? Or are they going to have other duties as directed?
We would like
Is there
to.
a job description?
The job description at this time is still for the part-time position, so we would have a new job description for the full-time position. However, as Maricela indicated, that in light of the information that was released by the state right before the budget workshop, and the ability to self-certify and the self-certification, that process that the city went through and submitted last week, it demonstrates that our water supply in Riverbank is very strong and very sustainable even during drought years. And so in light of that information that came about last week, and the fact that we've met our urban water management goals established in 2010, is that at this time we do not believe that we need a full-time water conservation coordinator. However, the city does remain under the state's conservation order. They have not lifted that order. We're hopeful that they will lift it sooner than January 1st, 2017, in light of this information and in light of the state's less restrictive water conservation targets. However, technically, we still remain under that conservation order. In addition to that, in terms of just the logistics of doing the budget, we did keep that in the budget for this, but we would need to do a full-time position classification, and we would need to determine whether or not we really needed a full-time position in water to do that. In most positions, we like to have them be as broad as possible and always include that other duties as assigned, to be able to span a wide range of responsibilities that might come up as time passes.
I would actually like to see this item taken out of the budget personally myself. I don't think we need to have it in there, and I think if we have to come at mid-year and do any changes, that we as city council can always put it back in there. But I personally would like to see it removed from the budget at this point in time. I just think it's easier to add something than have it there and then take it away or get someone hired. This is the only issue I have with the budget is this particular item right here, and I would like to see it removed. That's my own 2 cents.
To the contrary, I don't see the harm in keeping it in case we have a firmer direction from the state.
I understand that we can always add it back in there. If we have to do a mid-year budget, am I wrong? Can we always add it back in there if we
Yeah,
need
you
to?
can at mid-year, but let's say it has to start in September. We're still under review. Okay.
Wasn't
I
the
do. I
water
would like it to
conservation
go.
coordinator, wasn't that part of a mandate from the state, though? to
Yeah,
have
for
it?
part-time, this is full-time, $54,000 is a lot of money.
But if we made them full-time, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't revise it later on, even though it's in there.
We're not
Yeah, it's
making it
hard.
full-time. We're not making it full-time. We're doing absolutely nothing with $54,000. We have it there just in case.
That's what I meant.
That's how I read it.
I read it that way too. I just would feel a lot better without it there because I don't know. It's just personal. I would really like to see it gone. But that's just me. And
So
I'm
as
a
a
person on this
as a
council.
compromise to consider, in light of the fact that we would need to, ideally come back to you with a position description, is we do need to leave in the funding for the part-timers consistent with the state order. That is required. We could see what kind of response we get from the state between now and September 1, and in the process of that, if we needed to come back to you with that, with the job classifications, the direction we would not move forward on certainly any hiring. We don't have the job classification at this point in the game. So the process would be developing a job classification, developing a job description. We would need to go out and recruit for that position, and then ultimately determine whether or not we needed to fund it. If the direction from the council is to, one, we could remove the additional funds and come back and revisit it at any point in the future, based on direction from the state, or we could leave the money in there and just direction is to specific direction to not move on that item until a job description comes before the city council.
I guess when I hear all those things, I hear time, money, time spent on this, we need to get this done. Instead of that kind of stuff there, and maybe I'm not pleading my case very well, I just think it's easier to not have it in there than have it in there and then take it away. I guess it's like the water glass half full or filling, kind of thing is what I'm looking at it as. It's just easier to, once you've hired, and I know we're not hiring someone, but once you've hired someone and you've got them there, it's so much harder to go backwards and reverse taking that out of a budget item than just getting rid of it right now and not having it there and going, okay, yeah, oh gosh, we really need it, we need to add it back in there. It's just and I guess it's just philosophy, but.
It must be philosophy, because I see it easier, extremely easier, especially on the city council, to leave it in there. And if it gets executed, it's a lot easier process than going back and amending the budget. That's the way I see it. But, that's how I view, I don't know if any other druthers, I believe it should be left in.
I agree with you.
I'm not trying to be
No, I
obstinate or
understand.
anything else, but to me, it's easier to execute it if it's already in there than to go back. It's like piecemealing a project. This right here, we have it set just in case it has to be executed.
We wouldn't execute until mid-year.
No, we wouldn't execute it until the need comes.
If
So
the need
maybe not
comes.
even
If the need,
If the need comes, and once the job
and
classification
it may not
is
come, and so
developed.
that's going to look like we did something good next year, which we're going to have to do.
Council, there's so much consensus in this council on this, and it's really 6 on one hand, half dozen on the other in terms of how we handle it. And so I would just offer that up. Either way, there's no right or wrong in how to handle it. It really is just a matter of preference, and from the staff perspective, it really is what the council's direction is. I think what I hear loud and clear is that we should not move forward with hiring that full-time position unless it is determined, unless we're directed to by the state.
And I think that's my main concern. And if it wasn't in there, then it's guaranteed. And if it is in there, we're back at the state where we are now. Oh, well, it's in there. We've got money for it. I think we should go ahead and hire him. I just don't want that to happen. That's $54,000 I think we could take out of the budget.
Okay.
But I won't belabor it. I'll leave it there. We could move on.
Right. Okay, here's a perception. Riverbank is not doing enough for water conservation. That was in the Modesto Bee today. Modesto Bee editorial has said that all along. Oh, we're taking this out so we don't have to pay for it. Perceptions are reality. And I don't like it. The article today was false. And so that was going to be in staff comments. But we're going to have to educate the entire city and also the Modesto Bee readers on what is reality. And reality is, yes, we're still under a state mandate, but we're probably one of the first cities to meet our urban water management goals for 2020. We met it in 2015. So, but it's perception. And here's the perception that we aren't going to spend the money because we're sitting fine now. And we're not. So I would prefer leaving it in. We'll probably have to vote on that at the end. Keep going.
And if you'd like, you can vote on that particular item separately at the end.
So in terms of our entire 2016 and 17 annual operating budget, we're looking at beginning reserves of a little over $15 million with estimated revenues in all of our funds of $18 million, estimated expenditures of almost $20 million, and an ending reserve of $13 million. And here's just an expenditure by type for all of our expenses. As you'll know, salaries and benefits throughout all of our funds continues to be one of the most expensive costs for the city at 27% of all of the city's budget, with the second being our sheriff's contract. And I provided this slide, or I wanted to have this slide in there again just to facilitate any conversation regarding the positions that were being proposed within the general fund. And there has been some discussion that City Council has had on that already. But basically, today our recommendation is that the City Council provide direction on the proposed positions. That would be the full-time position in Parks and Recreation, the part-time position in Administrative Services, and the full-time position in the Water Division, and adopting a resolution that would approve our fiscal year 2016-17 annual operating budget. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Any questions or comments from the public? I bring it back. Let's first go with the personnel. For the Parks and Recreation, going from the part-time to a full-time. What is the pleasure of the council?
I agree.
I don't think that we should go for it with full-time. I think it should remain part-time until we hear from the state.
No, this is for Parks and Recs, not for water.
Oh, okay, I was talking about that one. Okay, yeah, yes on Parks and Rec, I'm sorry.
I'm yes on Parks and Recs.
Okay, we're moving forward 5-0 for Park and Recreation, going from part-time to full-time.
Probably for purposes of record, probably good to go ahead and have a roll call vote on the
On each
position.
one.
We just did. Okay, roll call vote. All in favor? Aye.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
5-0.
For hiring a part-time admin services,
I move that we approve that item.
I'll second it.
we have a motion to approve the admin services and a second.
Councilmember, Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, for the water conservation position, placeholder of $54,000.
I move that we keep it in the budget.
I'll second.
We have a motion to keep it in the budget and a second.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
No.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
No.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 3-2.
For overall, well, let me go back to the resolution. Item 5.10, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, adopting fiscal year 2016-17 annual operating budget. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the annual budget.
I second.
We have a motion to approve the budget for fiscal year 2016 and 17 and a second.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tucker,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Item 7.1, staff comments.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your vote to approve the budget. I just want to compliment Maricela Garcia and members of the staff who've worked a lot on this budget over the last few months. For staff comments, we'd like to start out with Michael Riddell, who will provide an update on the water meter project and a little bit more about the self-certification process. While Michael is coming to the forefront, in regards, Mayor, to your comment about educating the public in regards to the remaining conservation order, I did have a conversation with Kevin Valine today, who is writing an article on this process that the cities in Stanislaus County are going through, and did communicate what I communicated earlier, and that is the city remains under the conservation order. However, our self-certification numbers indicate that we do not have a water supply problem. However, we remain committed to encouraging and promoting conservation within our city. We recognize that water is a precious resource, and we want to use it wisely. So hopefully that will be reflected in the upcoming Modesto Bee article.
Every time we say we don't have a water problem, we don't. but it reflects across the state, well, Riverbank doesn't believe they have a water problem, even though they're going to conserve, that's why they're the worst city in the state of California, which is not actual. So we have to change the perception, even though we know what our water sources are and what their values are, we should downplay that and put more for the conservation. That's what I've been trying to drive home, and, well, we have no water problem. So therefore, we don't need a water conservation officer. Therefore, we can be lifted. That's not going to happen. The reality is the state came down on us because of an arbitrary 2013 figure. Although had we looked closer at our urban water management goals for 2020, where we were and where we are compared to the rest of the state, I think we'd have a stronger argument for a lot of the lifting of the conservation order from the state, instead of, well, we have no water problem.
Yes, sir. So now that the city manager stole all my thunder, so with the water project, the water meter project this time, we, as Maricela pointed out, we are actually a little bit over 50%. We've got about 3,800 meters in the ground. To answer to Mr. McRitchie's comments, I can't really attest to what Standard Constructions and how they're laying their work out, but I know that they went through and changed out the easy meters as quickly as possible. They were trying to get as many meters in the ground as possible so we could start reading them, because we now have the infrastructure in place to start the auto reads. So I think that was probably their goals, and that's probably the reason why they went in and put a meter in and then came back at a later date and put a box in. They are bringing all of our meter boxes to the city standard. Some of them are already in place. Some of the meter boxes already meet the standard. Some of them have what's called a B30 box, which is a little bit smaller box than it should be, and they need to be replaced out. Some of the old meter boxes are the real small ones. We will have meter boxes that will be in grass. We will have meter boxes that will be in planter, and we will have meter boxes that will be in cement, whether it be driveway or sidewalk. Those will have to be addressed as it goes along. So the process is they go after the easy ones first, get as many done as they can, and then they come back and start working on the hard ones. And I think that's kind of where we're starting to see.
He asked, why did they install the meter, then go back and install the box?
That's what I'm saying. I can't really attest to what Standard Construction's method of madness is here. I would assume at this time they were trying to get as many meters in as quickly as possible to get us to the point that we're reading, and then come back and redo the boxes.
Do you have any data that is showing issues or areas of concern? That was probably a wrong thing to say, area of concern.
At this point in time, we have had a few instances where we're dealing with leaks attributed to the meters being installed, but I know at this, I think that National Meter and the automatic meter read infrastructure and the AMR system are getting geared up, and I don't know exactly where Maricela is and finances with that, but I know they've started working on that. Is that correct, Maricela? Okay. No, sir. I'm not pushing the blame nowhere. The blame rests squarely with me. So now we can move on to, unless you have some more questions about the water meter project, I'll move on to the self-certification. Okay. So as you all are aware, the state of California has mandated that every city in the state of California come up with a water conservation standard of its own. And then you attribute that to your water supply and looking out 3 years, assuming that the drought will continue. With that, you have to come up with a number that says this is how much water we have, and this is how much water we will consume over the next 3 years. And if there's a shortfall in that, well, that percentage would be your water conservation standard. I hired a consultant to take a look at our production data, our past production data, our current, and what we suspect is underneath us at this point in time. Well, let me back up. Not suspect, what we know at this point in time. So The city of Riverbank has no shortfall for the next 3 years, even if we continue in the drought for the next 3 years. The data proves that out. Means that we have a zero shortfall, that technically means we have a 0% conservation standard. And as the mayor had commented, we know that that's not going to fly. So I have been in contact with the Office of Water Enforcement that levied the water conservation order to us for not meeting the standard that was set by the executive order, to work closely with them to come up with a water conservation standard, or what they think and what our data shows. And as the city manager had alluded to, and the mayor also had alluded to previously, is that through the urban water management plan, that every city in the state has been mandated to reduce their water by residential use by 20% by 2020. We are actually above that. We are sitting at about 26% right now, which means we met our 20% standard in 2015, as the mayor alluded to. So I still can stand here and specifically say that we do not have any water quantity or quality problems in the city of Riverbank. However, we are going to work, as the mayor pointed out, closely with the state of California to come up with a water conservation standard that we can live with, that is realistic, and we know we can meet, and at the same time work with the state to get them to lift that water conservation order. They have already alluded to that when I spoke to the the Office of Enforcement, that if we do the self-certification, they will consider doing so.
The story to be told is that starting in 2010, we started reducing our water consumption to meet our 2020 requirements.
Yes, sir.
That story has never been told.
No, sir.
That story needs to be prominent.
Yes, sir. It's right. We put it right up front and square with the state of California in the report, and we also did that with our production data.
Well, I'll see what Valine writes, but I may counter it.
I know that the gentleman that the city manager was alluding to from the city, from the Modesto B, also contacted me today, and I put that front and center with the information that I supplied him.
And Mayor, maybe I misspoke earlier, because what I agree with you that we want to continue to encourage conservation, and while our data suggests, things changed dramatically with the new directives that came out in late May, and so some of the story that we had been trying to tell really was something that was not resonating with the state. They basically, like you said, arbitrary, it was a set. But we do not want to squander our water, even if we have a reliable supply. We don't want to squander it. We want to use it wisely. We want to continue to conserve. We want to continue the patterns that we've developed so we continue to meet our 2020 urban water management guidelines. So while maybe the words we use are different, I want to let you know that we want to continue conservation in the city. We want to make sure that we continue to use it wisely. But we are working to see if we can lift the state order so that we have a little bit more flexibility in how we conserve.
And also, one other thing I'd like to point out in the information that was supplied to the Modesto B today, not only under the Urban Water Management Plan, but also we let the B know that through the self-certification and what we're continuing to do, that we will be working closely with the state for our water conservation standard. And there are several things that can come with that. And one other point that I wanted to make, and I almost forgot, as the city manager reminded me to, is that we will still continue to run the 2-day-a-week at the current restrictions that we have.
Bank Annex has a lot of complaints about that.
Encouraging everybody, again, the 2-day-a-week watering schedule remains in place, and we certainly appreciate everybody abiding by that. And we are still watching for enforcement, because for the reasons that have been discussed at this dais, we want to continue to encourage conservation. So we appreciate everybody's efforts. Sue has an update on some park usage and the water heater project.
Mayor and members of the council, on May 31st, we had a special city council meeting and you approved the pool heater. And since then, the past few weeks, we've been working on making sure we got the right model. And we were hoping to save a little bit of money. And so we looked at 3 different models, and we were told by one rep that we could get a smaller model and save about $5,000. And we almost did that, but after doing more research, we found that the Lochinvar model, the model that we had, is the best for our pool. And it did do us well. It lasted 17 years. We don't want to buy something that's going to be faulty in the next 5 years. So we're confident that going with the same model, spending the funds that you approved, is the right thing to do. And it is being built now, and it should be installed in the next few weeks. Meanwhile, the pump across the street broke. Everything that could break in the last 3 weeks have broken. So we're going through that, but just wanted you to know we are moving forward. The pool water right now is 83 degrees, so nobody's complaining at all. We're diligently putting the pool covers on, so that's retained the heat almost too much. So until we start getting the cool evenings, the community is completely satisfied for now. So thank you for that. The other is Jacob Myers Park has been extremely challenging over the past couple months just with the high numbers. We've reached another level, as have other parks in the area, but I wanted to let you know, just give you a heads up, I want to work on a presentation to council to get some advice and just tell you what some other challenges are that we've been dealing with, you know, on park capacity, how to deal with that, you know, when is the park at capacity, what is the best way to deal with that. And Chief Kiley and I are going to talk more about that too, and just the fact of people charging parking at the top of the park and 400 or 500 people walking in that aren't contributing to the resources that we're trying to, you know, use for our services is causing something that we hadn't planned for or knew was going to happen. So I'm going to try to work through some of that before I make the presentation, but I do need some advice and direction, and hopefully we can get it on the August meeting or September as soon as we can. So that's an update on that. Thank you.
Do you hit capacity in vehicles?
Yes, we have, and we are.
That's when you should shut it down for walk-ins.
We could do that.
That way, you know, you're saying, okay, the city says you have to have so many parking spaces for your activities. That's what you say you have. So at capacity, when you hit the parking, pedestrian traffic stops.
We could do that, and we are opening the back parking lot this weekend, so that will help. We're just not sure how the factor of the walk-ins would be. So if we say we're at parking capacity, the people have to be willing to go to park in the back parking lot as well. That's going to be about 200 more parking spots.
But, you know, we can stop the flow of foot traffic and vehicle traffic. We have that capacity. Let's do it. I mean, that should resolve a lot of your issues.
It will.
I'm not saying that you're going to stop the foot traffic before you reach capacity, but you stop it when you reach capacity.
Parking capacity. Yeah, and those are the type of things we need to determine and start putting into practice.
August is near the end of the season. We may want to visit it in July.
Correct, we could. I'm kind of feeling like at this point,
I don't think that the staff needs to bring it to council. You may want to tell us, hey, we have cut it off, and these are the reasons why. Safety is number one.
Correct.
May I speak?
Of course.
Since we'll be doing when push comes to shove, we'll be the ones enforcing this and potentially even maybe using force depending on what happens. My issue was, and it sounds like a simple solution as far as shut it off at vehicular traffic capacity or whatever you want to do, but if you have, my issue is Do we have an objective number? You know, can we quantify it where this is our maximum capacity? Do we have that? If we do have that, and a family of 5 that wants to enter sees a family of 5 leave, are we, because we said we're at max capacity and now you just reached a max capacity -5, now do we need to let 5 more people in? Because these are the real world issues that deputies are going to be dealing with, and so I wanted some clarification as to what it's going to be. So that way, if it comes down to law enforcement being on scene, having to enforce the law, where do we stand legally on that?
At that point, if a vehicle leaves, the vehicle can come back in.
Right, but I can't say that deputies are going to be able to monitor all that. So who's going to monitor it? How are they going to monitor it? And all these processes need to be in place so that when we show up and we say, excuse me, your family can't come in, and they point to the family that's leaving, I don't have somebody tied up on these types of issues trying to make decisions on the fly. They have hard and fast decisions that were made collectively by the city so that we know what to do when it comes to enforcement.
And Mayor and Council, so in that a lot of that's a legal issue that can be worked out. Some of which we can bring a report back because we want to make sure that the park is as safe as possible. Some of the things that have come up through discussions with Friends of Jacob Myers Park and through staff is maybe we need to revisit the fee structure. There are new fees going in across at the state parks. I understand Knights Ferry is now charging a fee every single day of the year. That maybe that means we're getting more of that we may need to revisit our fee schedule, possibly increase the fee, possibly charge it for more days of the week during the summer months. Maybe we start in April, we end in October. You know, those types of things are the things that we wanted to bring back to you possibly in August for implementation next year, since by virtue of the fees, they need to go through a process that we probably couldn't get those implemented before August 1 anyway. But those other issues we can certainly will be working out with legal. And
we'll discuss the fees increases when we discuss the fees later on in the fiscal year.
Just one comment in regards to what the chief was saying about when do we let them in, when do we let them out at capacity. Maybe we should look at what the Corps is doing, because they're shutting their parks down when they're at capacity, and they're going to have the same problem. Maybe we can learn something from them that might help us.
no reason to recreate the wheel. So wanted just to bring you up to date and what the recreation staff has been managing. And I think as you hear Sue talk about some of the things breaking, you know, we have been identifying key things and trying to anticipate when they're going to be breaking, but that things are, you know, we're pushing that. And the good news is people are using our parks, they're enjoying our parks, and that people are making the most of this beautiful river that we have. So that's a positive. And that concludes staff comments at this time.
Council comments, Councilmember Cruz.
The only thing I wanted to just make a note of is that we've got some high temperatures coming about, so make sure you keep your pets inside and watered and shade. Keep an eye on young children and elderly, so let's just be safe out there with the hot weather.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
I recently attended a presentation over in Oakdale by the Corps, the Army Corps of Engineers. They're in the process of wanting public input because they're updating their String of Pearls Park Plan, which hasn't been updated since 1977. You can go to the website, and I've asked staff if they could possibly put some of the information in some of our city communications. I'd like you to spread the word to people that they're doing this, because they're only going to take input from the public as long as till July 25th, a Monday, and then they're going to stop taking input. They're going to move in and analyze it and whatnot. So this is an opportunity if you want to speak your piece about what you'd like to see on the park system along the Santos River. You need to go to the website, just get on the Army Corps of Engineers site, and it'll direct you there. And likewise, make your comments. They have some basic questions, and then you can make some other comments that they will give you the opportunity to do. And last but not least, the 4th is coming up. There's still a big fire hazard out there. Everybody be safe, deal with safe fireworks, and have a good 4th.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez?
I recently attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for the completion of Route 99 and Kernan Road project. And as we all know, this project provides transportation, was a vital transportation path for goods and services for Modesto, but I think most importantly for Riverbank. As you know, it's a straight shot once you get off the freeway. I too want to wish everyone a happy July 4th and make sure that you're safe in the heat, use your fireworks safely, and check on the elderly. And I also would like to invite the youth, ages 5 to 12, to our Bicycle Rodeo Health and Safety Fair on Wednesday, July 6th at the Concerts in the Park in the Riverbank Certified Farmers Market. The time is 5 to 8 p.m. And at dusk, you'll be able to see a movie, which we show movies every night. But don't forget, that's going to be a special night. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Tucker?
I was just also going to talk about the fire safety concern with this coming weekend being the 4th of July weekend and all the illegal fireworks that we often see in our community. I'm just hoping that people will really think long and hard before they use illegal fireworks, and hope that enforcement is out there and stop some of this. And we certainly don't want to hear a lot of sirens that day. We want everybody to enjoy the holiday and be safe and be sane. So.
And on the 4th, if you see an illegal firework, go into your backyard. You can use your hose to put it out, even if it's not a watering day.
Even if it's not a watering day. Thank you, Mayor, for safety first.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right. Life jackets are available. I was disappointed to see an incident that happened at Woodward. Stars are out there trying to pass out life jackets, and they're being ignored. And we had a tragic end to a happy outing. So we have them available through the Consolidated Fire Department. If you need to go down to the river, take a life jacket. Use the life jacket. It doesn't mean you can't swim. It means that it's going to protect you in case you bump your head if you should happen to fall overboard. Ugly is still ugly. We have signs throughout our city that tells you where you can get free dollars or cash advance to garage sales, and they're all over the place and not being removed. We had the wall. We still have that wall. We could have made a temporary structure to block that wall off, make it look a little bit better than it still does. But ugly is still ugly. Damage to our artwork. We need to figure out ways to correct the artwork and then keep them intact. The Christopher Columbus lookalike has a book he's not reading because it's not there. We have oarsmen without oars. We need to get back into being proud of the city. A lot of the residences are proud, and we have to take pride where we are. I know it's an added task, but it is something that we all should look at. If you see a sign, you're walking, remove the sign. There's some new signs just being stuck out along Highway 108. They shouldn't be there. But we need to start looking at how much pride we need to take in our city and then move towards it. I think that may be a shift in strategic goals in September, October. 2 months ago, Senator Galgiani asked for inputs from each city that in her district on some of the projects that you have that she may be able to find funding for. Debbie Olson did a fantastic job organizing the different departments, and we made 12 inputs. One was Patterson Road, crossing, there was the Y car. We put in every possible thing that we knew that an immediate funding, and it would just be a one-time use. Today I was informed that the Safe Routes to School was elevated for consideration for the Roselle to Enox. So thank you for all of you that have worked on it. And Kathleen and Debbie, thank you very much. That doesn't mean we get the money. Okay? That means it's being elevated for consideration. We're still competing. And I'll be in touch with Senator Galgiani to find out what the results are. The other thing is that we have a lot of abilities to enforce ordinances and codes, and there are times an act is innocent that we should take the opportunity to instruct, whether somebody's watering the wrong date or whatever it is, that we should be able to instruct instead of being punitive. And I believe that can go across the board, that warnings are good instead of first time slam the hammer down. And I know I've been a little aggressive here the last couple of days. It may be I need a cup of coffee. Item 8, closed session. Item 8.1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 Alpha. Name of case, Barnum Construction, Inc. versus City of Riverbank, Court of Appeals of California, 5th District. Case number 350298, consolidated with case number 370694. Item 8.2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision Bravo of section of Government Code 54956.9, one potential case. So anyone from the public wish to comment on item 8.1 or 8.2? Seeing none, we are adjourning to closed session. Thank you.
Yeah.